Don't let the national media lie to you over the next few months. Sawyer Robertson is a better quarterback than Drew Allar. Here's why.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Monarch Money and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stuart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on YouTube. I appreciate you guys making this your first listen today and every day. The only daily podcast only about Baylor sports. Appreciate you guys tuning in for another one. We are going to talk a little bit about the Baylor quarterback today, as I promised. Sawyer Robertson, we hype him up, but is he actually better than some of the quarterbacks people think are the best in the nation? Yes, and I will tell you why, and you will be way smarter than most of your friends when it comes to talking about this. Plus, why the Big 12 is actually in the trenches fighting the college football playoff expansion. Brett Yormark talked about it at length this week, and I can't help but agree with the guy entirely, even though a lot of people think he's crazy on this one. And in basketball, are we trying to start a new rivalry? Is this a little bit forced? We'll tell you which one I'm talking about, and we'll do all that and so much more on this episode of Locked On Baylor. We start where we start. You guys know I'm a big Sawyer Robertson guy. Most of you listening to this from the Baylor aspect of things, we're big Sawyer Robertson people, to the point where we've maybe pushed it a little too far. You know, I've been sitting here saying, man, I think Sawyer Robertson's a top 5 quarterback in the country. And you hear all this other stuff about Arch Manning and Lenora Sellers and Cade Klubnik and all these other guys. You know, obviously there are some damn good quarterbacks in college football. And when you listen to the national media side of things, you won't even hear Sawyer Robertson mentioned. To the point where I think most of you are like me at times thinking, really, did I miss it that badly? Like, I watch this guy play every week. He seems pretty spectacular, and he does seem like one of the best returning quarterbacks in America. Well, it isn't just us in our little pocket of Waco, Texas, rooting for a small school like the Baylor Bears. There's this great article put out this week by ESPN looking at the top. It's really the 2026 quarterback draft class is what they're looking at. And here's the write-up on Sawyer Robertson. We're always searching for the quarterback who's primed to emerge from under the radar and climb to the top of the draft. While Cam Ward wasn't quite considered under the radar, he was overshadowed by players such as Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, and Shedeur Sanders at this time a year ago. Ward ultimately shot past all of them, being drafted number 1 overall. The 6'4", 220-pound Sawyer Robertson has the physical tools to potentially leap over more well-known quarterbacks. The former 4-star recruit transferred to Baylor from Mississippi State prior to the 2023 season. So there you go. He's already starting to get some momentum. But where we take it a step further is I think he's already better than some of these guys you're hearing some major draft hype about. I want to take you back to, it was about 3 months ago now that I first thought of this and sort of crunched the numbers, went through the stats, went through what people were saying about them. And I said, there's a quarterback you're going to hear a lot about in the course of the next year who Sawyer Robertson is already better than. Let's roll the tape. Last year, but Sawyer Robertson, no doubt, was a better quarterback. No doubt. I don't understand where that's coming from. I don't understand. I don't get the Drew Allar hype. I really don't. And I'm telling, there's going to be more. There's going to be projections of him going in the first round in the 26th NFL draft. He is not the quarterback that Sawyer Robertson is. I don't know how many of you needed to hear it, but I'm going to be the one delivering that. Bookmark this. Come back to this in late November. Sawyer Robertson is going to have a better year than Drew Allar. It's not just me. It's not just me back to present day sitting in the same spot 3 months later. Other people are starting to take note of this as well. The next paragraph of the write-up. If you want a dude that's going to come out of nowhere, it's Robertson, said an AFC South area scout who covers the Southwest. He's what everyone wants Penn State's Drew Allar to be. Big arm, and he can move. I couldn't find this because I'm not a good enough Locked On Baylor historian, but I did say that exact thing on this podcast in one of the other times I talked about Sawyer Robertson, comparing him to other quarterbacks. I said that exactly. And I'm not saying I'm an NFL scout or anything. I don't think he's copying me, but it validates me pretty good. Like, he is what you want Drew Allar to be, right? The big guy, 6'4", 6'5", who can sling it all over the yard. That's not Drew Allar. That's Sawyer Robertson. And the thing that got me the most, let's do the stats real quick, because the stats will show you that Sawyer Robertson is already a better quarterback than Drew Allar. We all know 3,000 yards passing, 28 touchdowns, just 8 picks a year ago. Drew Allar shot past that in passing yards, 3,300 yards, 24 touchdowns, the same amount of picks, except Drew Allar played 16 games last year. Sawyer Robertson played about 11 and a half and still had more touchdowns and less picks. And when you give, let's be conservative, 4 extra games to Drew Allar, he threw for 300 more yards. And Sawyer Robertson is the best returning quarterback rating of any quarterback in the country. Like, it's really, it's already been played out for us. And you'll remember Penn State goes to the semifinal. They finally have this run that people thought they were going to go on for years. And in that run, in those, 3 playoff games, he didn't throw a touchdown to any wide receiver. In the last game against Notre Dame, he didn't complete a single pass to a wide receiver on his team. Sawyer Robertson unleashes wide receivers, helps make walk-ons into all-conference players. Drew Allar holds them down. He makes them worse. 2 of his top receivers entered the transfer portal after this year. They didn't want to play for a first-round pick, top 5 college football quarterback. That's not happening at Baylor. And to be fair across our conference and some of these other quarterbacks, it's not happening at Arizona State either to Sam Leavitt. It's happening to Drew Allar. And I watched a lot of Penn State last year. They obviously made a deep run. We saw a lot of Penn State. I just didn't see a game where I'm like, yeah, that's the guy. What? Just give him the ball, get out of his way. Like, this is his team. They weren't that. And now he's got to go through it without his top 2 pass catchers, and we'll see how he works without a first-round draft pick at tight end. It's going to be a whole nother ball game for Drew Allar this year. And partially he only has doesn't make any sense, but he kind of only has himself to blame on losing 2 of his top receivers. They left in the portal. They didn't want to catch passes from Drew Allar because they didn't know if it was coming their way. It's this weird Penn State thing. It's happened for years. It's Drew Allar now, but it was Trace McSorley. It was Matt McGloin. It was Christian Hackenberg more than all the rest. They just like the vibes of these guys. Maybe it's their football swag. I don't know, but none of those guys were like elite quarterbacks, and yet everyone in college football wanted you to think that they were. And the great famous quote about Christian Hackenberg when he was playing for the Jets, I believe it was Woody Johnson that said it, when a reporter asked him, can Christian Hackenberg throw a ball into the ocean? And he said, which ocean? I don't know what it is about these Penn State quarterbacks, but bring that to your group chat. Bring that to your office with other college football fans and let them know right away so that they're ahead of the curve. Sawyer Robertson is a better quarterback than Drew Allar. He was last year, and he's going to be again this year. It's not just the Locked On Baylor host saying that. It's not just you, the Baylor fan. That is NFL scouts saying that. Basically saying, if you draft Drew Allar over Sawyer Robertson, you're making a big mistake. All this stuff you want Drew Allar to be, Sawyer Robertson already is. Already is. And was this past year. So you can keep giving pretty boy Drew Allar all the hype you want. Humble Sawyer Robertson is just going to keep throwing 3 touchdowns a game, going to buy Yeti coolers for his teammates, and he's going to win the Big 12 championship. Just my 2 cents. But let me know what you think in the comments below on YouTube, or tweet at us at Locked On Baylor if you're listening wherever you get your podcast as well. We will continue with football in the college football playoff. Speaking of Drew Allar and now Sawyer Robertson this year, why is the Big 12 pushing back so hard on the 2 automatic qualifiers that the conference would get under the new model? Why are they pushing back on that so hard? We'll hear from the man himself, Brett Yormark, on that coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But first, let me ask you a question. You ever look at that bank account and think, where did all my money go? Right? Dining out, online shopping for dining out, entertainment. It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO. It gives you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is not a budgeting app, okay? That would be selling it short. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing that money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, even plan long-term goals. And managing money with your partner, it's better than ever. You track the shared and the personal accounts. You set goals together. You stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDON, COLLEGE, for half off your first year. So speaking of the college football playoff, a place where Baylor has legitimate aspirations for in 2025, this has been one of the talks of the offseason, right? The House settlement and the college football playoff expansion. And I think a lot of people were really surprised that the Big 12 and a lot of its fans are balking at the offer that they would get 2 automatic qualifiers per year. This new projection, this new model that they're throwing out there, 4 AQs for the SEC and the Big 10, who could do no wrong, 2 for the ACC, 2 for the Big 12, fill out the rest with, some mid-majors, at-larges, all that. And I pushed back on it right away on this show. And I know Drake did on Locked On Big 12 as well. And I saw a lot of comments. There are plenty of Baylor fans who think this way too, and Big 12 fans who say, that's as good a deal as we're going to get. We need to take that deal. You only got 1 team in the college football playoff this year. Like 2 in a model that has 4 more teams, by the way, than this year. They're like 2 is probably as good as we're going to get. And on the Triple Option podcast this week, that's the Fox Sports guys, Rob Stone, Urban Meyer, Mark Ingram, just podcast giants. They had Brett Yormark, the commissioner of the Big 12, on, and they asked him explicitly about that. He's got 2 answers that I want to play in here that I think are really enlightening and I think are going to speak for a lot of Big 12 fans. But let's start with his initial reaction of why he didn't want to take that deal where the Big 12 automatically got 2 teams in the CFP every year.
And I just want to take you back to when the concept was out there not too long ago where the Big 10 and the SEC had 4 guaranteed spots in expansion. This is going to 14 teams. The Big 12 and the ACC were only guaranteed 2. When you first saw that model, what went through your head? What went through your heart?
I didn't like it. And obviously that model's been out there for almost a year now. And I didn't like it because I just felt that it created a huge divide between us and those 2 conferences. Now, as you guys know, I have good self-awareness. I know where we reside in the world of college football. But I just felt that it put a line in the sand that didn't need to be there. Okay, I'm a firm believer in that, if you create value, you should be rewarded, earn it on the field. Okay, every year's a new year. And by the way, with settlement, in theory, it should be creating a level playing field across the board. Okay. So I didn't like it.
I just think that is the perfect way to put it. It's a line in the sand. By accepting the 2 AQs, you're just white flag. We give up. We worship at the almighty altar of the SEC and the Big 10. That is the perfect way to put it. Are they going to get 2 teams every year? Maybe not. But by the way, in a 16-team playoff versus a 12-team playoff, I'm taking my chances. Especially over the ACC. I'm taking my chances. Now, I understand the ACC got 2 in a 12-team playoff last year, but I would rather take those odds. When you look at last year and how things could have shook out, whatever, at the end with schools like BYU and Colorado and Iowa State, who was the runner-up in this conference, also in the Big 12 championship game, I like my chances at getting 2 teams in there in the 16-team college playoff. And I don't think it's crazy. I really don't. Maybe I'm being naive. I don't think it's crazy that there are some years where you do have 3 teams that can get in there. Like if we look at the last 10 years and there was a 16-team college football playoff that you didn't have, whatever number of automatic qualifiers, I think you would have had several where you could have got 3 Big 12 teams in there. Like thinking back to even a couple years ago, those Big 12 championship games that Baylor played in, against Oklahoma, that was a play-in game for the college football playoff of a 4-team. Those were 2 teams in the top 6. In 2021, when they faced Oklahoma State, it was 2 teams in the top 10. Texas versus Oklahoma State was 2 teams in the top 20. It's not crazy to think you can get 3 teams in there. And what I love is Brett Yormark saying, we're not going to admit defeat like that. We're not just going to give them that. And he goes on to talk about it a little bit more in the 5+11 and why he was so outspoken about it and what it means for not just the Big 12, but for the greater college football world. Let's take a listen.
And I was pretty outspoken during our spring meetings that, a 5-11 format was certainly something I liked. I like 16 because more access is good. Okay. Yep. There's a point where access, starts equating to dilution, but I don't think at 16 you're diluting anything. I think, it's a good number to work with. And, obviously the 5 AQs is what we have right now, effectively. The five, highest rated conference champions. So, felt comfortable with that format versus, every year knowing what someone already has and before you even, play the season. And I felt that it was in the best interest of those 2 conferences only and not in the best interest of the fans in college football.
That last part right there, I felt it was only in the best interest of those 2 conferences, not the world of college football, the world that we all live in outside of the SEC and the Big 10. That's what this all comes down to. It's not just a fight for the Big 12. I mean, of course, that's the main objective for the Big 12 commissioner, but it's a fight for the ACC, for the Mountain West, for the AAC, for all these other conferences that deserve a shot. And I think I've said this on the show before. Maybe I haven't, but why do we even need more than 1 automatic qualifier? Why is the SEC, why are the SEC and the Big 10 so insecure that they need 4 each? Why do we need that? Why do we need that guarantee? Like March Madness is the best tournament that we have. Each conference gets 1. Not even the regular season champion. It's the conference tournament champion that gets in. I think that conference, or excuse me, that tournament does just fine. Okay? You can't have a 64-team tournament in football. Try as they might in the next couple of years. You can't do that. 16, that's a hell of a number. That's more than we've ever had. 12 was more than we ever had. Why do we need more than 1 automatic qualifier? That doesn't make sense. And yes, I know people hate hearing this, but when you do that, you do water down the regular season by giving out 4 automatic qualifiers. You just need to tread water to do that. Like we have this regular season, we have these conferences, we have strength of schedule, we have all this crap that we use to determine who gets in this playoff for a reason. And the reason is not for, okay, which 4 SEC teams are going to be, which 4 Big 10 teams are going to be. It's not that. We don't need more than 1 automatic qualifier. And I think the Big 12 and probably the ACC as well are ready to say, let the chips fall as they may. The ACC last year, they did get 2 teams in. Even with one of them being, a team from the group of 5 the year before. But SMU did deserve to be in there. Absolutely. And what it comes down to on the flip side of things, we talk about, there are years where the Big 12 should get 3 teams in the 16-team playoff. Let's be totally honest with ourselves. How many years are there not going to be 4 SEC teams? Less than 4 SEC teams. How many years are going to be less than 4 Big Ten teams? Probably more often than you think, by the way, on the Big Ten, if we're just being honest. But like, it was a 12-team playoff last year, and what? They had 4, excuse me. The Big Ten had 4. The SEC had 4, right? If I'm doing the math there. Texas, Georgia, Tennessee. I'm doing it all too lame here. But there's not many years at all where they're going to have less than 4 teams. So Brett Yormark, plant that flag, man. Keep fighting the fight. I know not all Big 12 fans agree with me. And if you don't, please let me know in the comments. Give me your reasoning. I just think it's worth the fight. It's worth it. Even if there are some years, like in 2024, 25, where we had 1 team in there. I think it's worth the fight for what's right in college football. Because I think this is a way, a 16-team playoff, that can appease a lot of people, and we don't have to make it screwy with the way that the SEC and the Big Ten are laying it out. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, the only place that's giving you daily exclusive Baylor sports content. So I appreciate that. Find us on YouTube and, of course, wherever you find your podcasts as well. Locked On Baylor rolls on, because I got to pose this question to you guys. Are we forcing a basketball rivalry here that's not really a rivalry? Let's talk about it next on Locked On Baylor. So we talked about this yesterday with Sydney on the show, the pairings for the basketball season for Baylor men's basketball. And I'll put it up on the screen again if you're watching on YouTube. Kansas on the road. Always fun to go to Fog Allen, even though we don't win there very much. BYU and Tech, both at home. Those will be 2 big-time games. And then you've got the pairings down at the bottom, home and away. TCU makes sense. I know it's more of a football rivalry than a basketball rivalry, but that makes sense. Iowa State, sure, why not? And then Houston. Houston's the third one, home and away. Played them home and away last year as well, before or after playing them only at home in their year 1 in the Big 12. And I wonder, are we forcing a bit of a rivalry there? Are we trying to make fetch happen with Baylor and Houston on the basketball court? Because I have a feeling I'm wrong on this one. I think a lot of people do like that game and that matchup. But to me, it just doesn't have the feeling. It doesn't have the hatred there. Now, I know, you're already yelling at your computer, yelling at your phone. LJ Cryer! I know. I was there for his return. Booing him every time he touched the ball. I remember it. I think that's apt. That's what sports is about. You know what I mean? But I don't feel it between these coaches, between these fan bases, between these schools. They're very different. One of the great things about the Baylor-TCU rivalry is that they're very similar in more ways than either school would like to admit. But Houston, it's like you're not battling for the same students. You weren't in the same conference for the last 20 years, 25 before they came back, almost 30. And I know there are a lot of people that do remember the Southwest Conference days, and specifically a lot of Houston fans that are still pissed off that Baylor got the invite to the Big 12 and they didn't. So maybe I'm just missing that. Maybe I'm just in a spot where, age-wise, where it just doesn't add up for me. But I don't feel the vitriol, the hatred in that. It's not Baylor TCU. It's not Baylor UT. It's not Baylor Tech. It's not even Baylor Kansas. And right now, there's a pretty big gap between these two programs going into 25-26. Like, I hate to say it on this podcast, but Houston's way better than Baylor going into this year. They just went to the national championship game again. They've won the Big 12 the last 2 years. And Baylor scraped by to get into the tournament. They're probably going to have to do the same thing this year. Baylor's got the one that matters. I think that's cool that you got them to match up in the national semifinal in the Final Four. And, of course, Baylor just kicked them 10 ways to Sunday. But I don't know. I don't feel it. And now LJ Cryer's not there. So what do you click it onto? And maybe it's because they weren't in the same conference for a while. Maybe it's because they're two different kinds of schools. Maybe it's because it's basketball and not football, like just how it is in this state. But I don't have the hatred. I don't circle that game. Yeah, UH, man. That's the one we got to take care of. This screams a lot like Duke, Maryland back in the day. Maryland was like, Duke is our biggest rival. I think that's what Houston thinks. Baylor's our big rival. I'm sorry. It's not. I don't know that we even have a great rival in basketball, to be honest with you. But if we're picking a rival for Baylor as a school, it's TCU. It's not Houston. And who knows? Maybe some Houston fans are still picking Rice because they can bully them and hold them at arm's length and stuff them in a locker. Congrats. But I just don't feel that. But I could be wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong, please, in the comment section below. Is this a forced rivalry or is this legit? Let me know in the comments. Guys, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you love the Baylor Bears and the Big 12 Conference, definitely do that. Of course, we're here on YouTube 4 days a week now for the next couple of weeks on the summer schedule. But we are tracking some big-time recruiting news. I know you guys have seen a lot of these mixed messages out there, little coded messages. Could have some big-time commitments in the next couple of days. Some big-time commitments in the next couple of days. We'll keep you updated on that as well here on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Thank you guys so much for making it your first listen today and every day. If nothing else crazy happens, we'll see you on Monday, which is going to be a Locked On Baylor, Locked On Big 12 crossover Monday on your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.